What is up, lovely ladies? I'm actually not in my office because I just moved again. So I don't have a proper office set up at the moment, which really sucks. And this light is blinding me, but it means that you can see me properly on the video. Like, I'm literally sitting from my kitchen. I'll show you my new kitchen because it's actually great. I love it. I love it. And we've got a little new coffee machine over there too, which is pretty exciting, not gonna lie. I've waited my whole life for a coffee machine. For so long I was drinking instant coffee, and yeah, it was okay, but having a coffee machine now, I don't know if I can go back. Sorry. That's real life. I literally just moved, really. I do have an office, which is great, but I haven't set it up, and there's no desk and there's no chair. I mean, I have a chair now, but I can't carry all this up the stairway myself. This is just like the little mini dining table. But before I get on a rant, number one, we are talking about emotional eating today. I actually wanted to bring you on to not the whole live call, but part of the live coaching call. I actually call them alignment sessions, where we talk about a lot of different topics with my clients, but we're going to be talking about emotional eating habits today and how to overcome them, really dive into like the science behind that as well. I'm staring at, I'm a little bit sidetracked at the moment. Usually I'm not like this. I've just been working all day, and I'm also like really excited for this session with my clients tonight. This lip balm, the Haror, it's like tinted black cherry lip balm. The best lip balm I've ever come across. Plus it like blends so well with my lipstick, so I love that. But yeah, we are running through emotional eating habits today, and I'm gonna record it and pop this on top of it. Probably won't film the whole thing, just so I don't share too much of my amazing knowledge for free. But regardless, you'll definitely be getting a ton of value from what you do learn, and I might change my mind and just film the whole thing. So hope you enjoy. Alrighty guys, hi. I know, different setup. We have a lot to run through today, and I want to just start. It's lovely to see everyone's faces, but I want to start talking, and then when we get to the end, I'll do a bit of a Q&A. You can ask other questions, write down your questions in the chat box, write them on your phone so you don't forget when those questions pop up throughout the call. But yeah, we've got a lot to run through today, and I want to explain everything, and it's in a certain order so we don't get confused. So keep those questions in the chat box, write them on your phone, in your notes. We'll go through a Q&A at the very end. But I'm honestly quite excited for this one because I know pretty much all of you came to me struggling with emotional eating habits of some degree. Obviously variable. So I'm gonna share my screen with you all. Okay. Let's start this slideshow. I always do it the other way, I know. All right, cool. So starting with emotional eating. The most important thing to understand is that your habits change your life if you change your habits. Emotional eating is a habit. You're not just born with emotional eating. You develop emotional eating by specific behaviors. All right. Number one is understanding what emotional eating actually is, where it stems from, where it's related to you personally when it comes to specific foods, specific cravings, overeating portions, when exactly in the day is this a common occurrence for you, things of that nature. But firstly, we need to understand, so females are more emotional than men. That is simply the way we are. Now, there are still a lot of men and males who are overweight. There are a lot of men and males that emotionally eat. Absolutely. But females are more emotional, which does make emotional eating habits for us harder to change, but also easier to develop. But being emotional, and this is something that, my partner says to me all the time, being emotional is, you're allowed to be emotional. You're a female, you are allowed to be emotional. So it's not about changing our emotions, because fuck that. You're a female. It's the way we're meant to be. It's about understanding how these emotional eating habits have developed into our life and our perspective and our emotional reaction towards them. But it's not about changing who we are deep down inside, or our emotions, or trying to ignore them, or trying to dismiss them. Because we all know when we ignore or dismiss emotions, that doesn't do us any benefit anyway. It will just build up into overwhelm. All right. Hope I've made that crystal clear. Emotional eating, it's a habit we have built to secure and comfort negative emotions, right? We think we need to eat that food or overeat our serving to feel secure and comforted because of some sort of negative emotion. Now, even one of my younger siblings, when they were younger, that is, they've grown up now, they're not like this anymore. They actually recently barbell bench press, which I was very impressed about because I've been trying to get him into the gym. Because I'm his older sister that's fitter and stronger than him. But my point is, when he was younger, he was a very anxious kid. And he didn't necessarily have cravings, but he emotionally ate. As in, he just kept eating, and he ate so quickly that he didn't give himself a moment to notice that his body was full. So he was always a little bit overweight, a little bit chubby, that kind of nature. He's built himself out of that also because of my support. Now, understanding why it is a habit we have though, I can tell you right now that I don't have emotional eating habits. I'm an emotional female. I will get upset. I will get angry. I will get excited. But I don't have emotional eating habits. But if you do, and pretty much all of you have, or you do still experience, we need to understand why we've built this habit. Figuring out your why, all right? It's either the environment you were raised in as a young child or adult. Meaning, your parents overate. Your parents always had ice cream, so you always had ice cream. You were, every birthday party, there was only unhealthy food on the birthday party, board that they would have. There weren't salads or healthy sandwich options or whatever. Believe it or not, there are families out there that would have healthy options at a child's birthday party, but I've seen many child's birthday parties not have any healthy options at all. The environment that we are raised in is so fragile and delicate because we are so easy to absorb and adapt when we are children. If your parents expressed emotional eating habits, there is an extremely strong likelihood that that is the reason why you developed emotional eating habits. If your parents were overweight, that's probably why you ended up overweight, because you didn't understand food, because you weren't educated, which comes into your environment. So that's my second point. Your why might simply be because you weren't educated. Now, I know some people in here that didn't come from necessarily a family, or maybe a lot of their childhood they were actually raised in a boarding school. So it's not necessarily family orientated, but what I'm trying to say is the environment that you were raised in and that you were exposed to If that didn't also include education, then how the fuck were you ever meant to really understand nutrition? What a healthy meal is. That just because you feel negative, you shouldn't just dive into a whole tub of ice cream. Number 3 is understanding your why might actually simply be we are at a certain stage of your menstrual cycle. As I've explained in previous alignment sessions, where we dive deep into that, at certain times in your menstrual cycle, you can experience cravings, particularly pre and on your period. So those are the 3 situations. It might be a combination of 2 or 3 or just one of them. The environment you were raised in, you weren't educated, or you're at a certain stage of your menstrual cycle. Those are the possibilities as to why you might experience emotional eating. Taste buds. So our taste buds essentially contain genetic material that transacts a message to our brain telling us that we crave salty food. When we have a salty chip, we can taste that salt. That is how. So our taste buds are actually genetic material, okay? And genetics, whilst some genetics you can't change, you can change some genetics, absolutely. Genetic material is transacted and essentially transcribed to create hormones, to create proteins, to tell our body to do something, lots of different things. But in this case, with reference to taste buds, our taste buds are genetic, yes, but they can change. Think of a food that you didn't like as a kid that you now like as an adult. That's because your taste buds can adapt and change, because the genetic material can turn off, it can turn on, and it can change over time, which is why some of you come back to me saying, I don't crave anything anymore. I don't experience cravings, because you stuck to a meal plan with the uttermost consistency to the point where you've changed the genetics of your taste buds. That is why, which is awesome, which is why it's important to understand that just because of the environment we were raised in, the uneducated environment potentially, the stage of our menstrual cycle, regardless of even just excuses that you want to make for yourself, you can change the genetics of your taste buds. Therefore, you can change your habits. Therefore, you can change your life. You can change your weight. You can change your health because of the genetics of our taste buds. Okay, now with reference to our taste buds, you've basically got 5 tastes. Sugar, salt, sweet, sour, bitter, and umami. I like labeling, umami is like Asian. That's the way I think about it. It's like that Asian kind of flavor. But the real word for that is umami. And those are the different kinds of tastes that you can experience. When you're craving a salty food, the genetic, essentially the taste cell is expressed. And the more you have those salty foods, the more that taste cell is expressed. So that's how it all works without getting too complicated. Why do I emotionally eat now? So we understand where it can stem from. We understand how it works. But why do we do this now in our adult lives? Well, let's firstly understand that cravings and overeating are 2 different things. Yes, you can overeat your cravings, but they're actually separate, different, neurologically wiring behaviors. Cravings stem from stress, not hunger. I've had so many people say, I'm craving this because I'm hungry. You're not actually hungry. You're stressed from maybe being in like a deficit for too long, or maybe from some external thing in your life, or maybe the phase of your menstrual cycle. Believe it or not, you can be in a caloric deficit. You can be eating less than your body requires and still not crave things, simply because you are not stressed. I've been there myself. I did like an 8-week mini cut, which was cut short into 6 weeks because I was so accountable towards it. But even though I was in a significant deficit, I didn't crave a single thing. That's also because I had stuck to a meal plan so consistently before, but I also wasn't stressed. Like, there was no mental stress there. My period was very normal and regular, no negative symptoms, PMS there. So I need you guys to understand cravings stem from stress, not hunger. Now, what am I craving specifically? We need to understand that as well. If you cannot label your craving, then you're not craving things. You are just hungry or you're wanting to overeat. Separate these things, ladies. They are not the same thing. If you are craving something though, we need to understand, what am I craving specifically? Is it chips? What kind of chips? Is it lollies? What kind of lollies? What kind of savory thing? What is it, like a savory muffin? Breakfast muffin? Breakfast burrito? I don't know. Take out GYG, for example. Be specific. Be able to label it in your own brain. Write it down. If you want to change this shit, write it down and it will change your life. What am I craving specifically? Once we've got crystal clear on that, we need to understand, okay, if I'm craving that specifically, because the thing is, if you can't label specifically what it is that you're craving, you're not craving, you're just wanting to overeat. Label it specifically, what are you craving? Then ask yourself, why am I stressed? And what is that stress? So is the stress anxiety? Is it a feeling of being nervous? Is it a state of overwhelm? Is it like just feeling sad? What kind of negative emotion is it? You need to label that. And then, why am I feeling that negative emotion? It might just be where you're at in your menstrual cycle even, if you get right down to it. Having a period is stressful for your body, especially if you are not healthy or hormonally balanced, and if you are in pain, if you experience negative symptoms. What are you craving specifically? Am I stressed? What is the exact kind or form of stressful emotion, which is a negative emotion? And then why the fuck are you stressed? You need to actually ask yourselves these questions. Otherwise, you're never going to overcome these behaviors. And then lastly, is this stress in my control or out of my control? Is there something I could actually do about it? And I'm making excuses for myself and I'm not actually changing that. For example, is the stress the financial, this is a terrible example, but the financial hardship of, being employed full-time, but you don't feel like you're getting paid your worth? That's why you're stressed. What exactly is the stress? Like, what's that negative emotion? Maybe it's upset. Maybe it's a bit of frustration. Is this in my control or out of my control? It is in your control, actually. You could apply for another job. You could try and be really good at your job so you get leveled up in the management system of things. You could start your own business. It is in your control. But regardless of whether the stress is in or out of your control, now there's more severe cases, like someone passed away, for example. That's out of your control. But regardless, what we need to understand is that food won't change my stress. But it makes sense as to why I'm craving foods. Let me say that again. Food won't change my stress, but it makes sense as to why I am craving foods. Those two sentences on repeat will change your life because you will change your emotional eating behaviors. If you take this journey seriously, you are going to listen to what I'm saying, write this shit down, Save it in the notes of your phone and your life will change forever. If you don't take this shit seriously, you're going to be doing something at the same time as listening to this, let it go in one ear and out the other ear, and then complain to me as to why you overindulged or you dived into your cravings and now you feel like you let yourself down or you feel guilty or you feel frustrated, rather than preparing yourself for that experience by writing this shit down. Regardless, food won't change my stress, but it makes sense as to why I am craving foods. Hope I got that note down. Enough. I could be airy and nice and fairy about this and be like, oh, it's okay, but like, I want to change your life. And I have changed many women's lives. But changing this will change your life for the longevity of your life. Holistic de-stress implementation. Now, you might think this is BS, bullshit. You might be like, Lily, this stress is astronomical that I am experiencing. And it's out of my control. And there's absolutely no freaking thing I can do about this. You can always lower your stress levels, though. You can always choose how you react. You can choose to not indulge in your cravings. You can choose to not overeat your portion sizes because you take this shit seriously. You can actually apply holistic de-stress implementation, hence the word implementation. Yoga, sauna, ice bath, journal, talk to a psychologist, a counselor, talk to your friend, get fresh air. We all know these things. We all know that they may not fix. They most likely won't fix the stress that you are experiencing, but they will lower the sensation of that stress. Plus, regardless of whether you're experiencing stress or not, like, these things are good for your mental well-being. So why would you not take care of your mental health when the way you think is dictated into your reality? Regardless, food won't change my stress, but it makes sense as to why I am craving foods. You can think of some other holistic de-stress implementations. Oh, you know what? Training. That's a great one. I'm extremely passionate about this because with all the hundreds of women that I've worked with over the years, emotional eating is always the toughest one for people to overcome. But it's also the most life-changing one. Big time. That's why people say, like, you changed my life. Well, sometimes the reason, not always the reason, but sometimes. But I know when they say that, that's life-changing for them forever. And it's when clients come back as well. I'm not going to lie to you. All right. Write this down because food is just food. It is not a psychologist. It is not your best friend or your lover or $1 million in cash. It might feel like it is when you're really craving those foods or you just want to overeat, but it is not a psychologist or your best friend or your lover for the rest of your life or $1 million in cash. It's just not. It's fucking food. It doesn't even have a central nervous system. Can't do anything for you. We think it can fix our stress, though, subconsciously, because of the environment we were raised in and being uneducated in our younger years. I think that's my partner, speak of which. Now, let's talk about the difference between not craving, but just wanting to overeat. So when you want to overeat, you need to be very clear that I'm not craving something. I just want to overeat, which is why it's important that we try and target what specifically that craving is, right down to the very product or food, so that we might understand, oh, hang on a sec, I'm not actually craving anything. I just want to overeat, rah, rah, rah. The more that you can repeat this almost reflection strategy, you could say, is the more that you're going to start to understand the way you behave because of the way that you think, which isn't necessarily your fault. Now, again, there might not be a craving specifically, but we still have the behavioral response wired into our brain, though. Because of the environment we were raised in, or simply just being uneducated in our younger years. So next time we want to dive into our cravings or overeat, this is essentially a breakdown of what you need to do. Firstly, we need to learn to accept that, like, it's taken you years to build this emotional eating habit, right? It's the reason it's so hard to change. And it's the reason that pretty much 99% of you have came to me for help, at least one of the reasons. So we need to actually accept that this is a neurological behavioral pattern that you have developed for years. And we need to accept that it's actually not our fault. We were either uneducated or the environment wasn't the right environment to actually learn from because, you know, our parents or the boarding school, whatever it was, didn't actually structure a balanced meal. So how are we ever meant to understand that? So it's not going to be easy to change it, no. But the point is you can change it and you can choose to learn and grow towards the woman that, you know, you desire to be instead. That's a choice that you can make. And it's also a choice that all of you made when you first, you know, decided to sign up and start working with me. And in fact, there's people on this call right now. They're just here to learn more. Those people, you know who you are, have come around and texted me and said, I don't crave anything on my check-ins. I don't actually crave anything anymore. Because they've changed that neurological behavior pattern and they've actually put these strategies in place that the other people in this call are learning now. So overall, what you want to do is write this shit down because if it goes in your ear and out the other, then that's no help. So next time you want to crave something, most likely get out your phone. All of us have our phones on us like almost 24/7. If you don't, your laptop, notebook, I don't care. Write it on the mirror, the fridge. Some people have those like, you know, those chalk whiteboard things. Probably don't write it on your mirror, but you could. Write down in notes or whatever, what kind of stress you are feeling. You need to be able to identify what kind of stress is it. Because it's obviously negative. Is it upset, anxiousness, overwhelm, like whatever? You need to be able to signify what exactly the stress is, then where it is coming from. And most of the time that causes you to reflect on your life or where you're at in the present moment and where that stress is coming from. If you are able to identify the connection between that particular kind of stress and where it is coming from, then that is your first step to success with this. Then ask yourself, is this stress in my control or out of my control? Now, we all know after everything I just ran through that regardless, the process is going to be the same, but it's important to signify that because sometimes we can change that stress for the rest of our life simply by understanding, oh, you know what, this is in my control. I actually could do something about it. And therefore, that stress isn't going to come into our life in weeks, months, years to come. Regardless, what can I do to relieve the stress in the given moment? Write this down or screenshot it, take a photo of me. I'll pause. I'll post it in the group anyway. But what can you do to de-stress this in the given moment? Yeah, journaling, exactly. Go to the gym, yeah. Get outside, talk to your family, Social time. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I love these. These are great. But we all know that there's other ways to relieve the stress. And we have all just learned that food is just food. Not a psychologist, a counselor, your best friend, whatever. I wish food was $1,000,000. I wouldn't mind being fat if it was $1,000,000. Just kidding. But yes, hope that all made sense. We ran through that with decent amount of time. And if you have any questions, just pop them in the chat box. Yeah, I saw that one about the taste bud slide. Yeah. What exactly did you want to know about it though? Oh, okay, gotcha. Yeah. Okay. So as I said, think of something that you really disliked as a child that you now enjoy as an adult. So that is evidence right there that your taste buds can change. A lot of the time we think we are born with our genetics. You are born with your genetics to a certain extent, but at the same time, genetic material is processed, transacted, and transcribed. It's why, we grow, we hit puberty, whatever. Same thing with our taste buds and our tongue. You can see in the diagram there that essentially, without it being too complicated, genes can be turned on. So genes are part of your DNA. But at the same time, we have like the genes for our taste buds. We have the genes for our tongue. We have the genes for certain tastes. These can be switched off and on. One can be switched off and one can be turned on even more. And it can start, think of like a blender, for example. It's got different settings, like a slow one, a fast one, a really fast one where it starts sounding like it's gonna fall off the bench. That's like essentially, if you want to think of it that way, and then you can turn it off, right? Once the smoothie is done. That's kind of like the way you can think about the genetics of your taste buds, how they can turn off, they can turn on even more, etc. And that is actually a good point, actually, that I've talked about this now, because you can take that into, when you crave a certain food at that certain time or space of your menstrual cycle, you can start to understand, oh, that's why I feel that more. It's because it's being transacted more because you're in a state of stress, obviously, and that's a normal response to a certain extent. So yeah, very interesting there. But when we can understand, oh, this is like actually not just behavioral, it's also the way that we are being raised, which causes the science of our taste buds to simply be a certain way, is pretty cool. But it also helps us understand, oh, we can change the science of our taste buds, meaning we can stop these cravings long term by changing our behaviors, but also by the consistency of sticking to a meal plan. Yeah. I can list 3 people right now: Jada, Portia, Ellie reached out to me this week saying they weren't craving anything. It's possible. Portia's been with me for a while. Jada has been with me for not very long. Ellie hasn't been with me for very long either. But because of their accountability and their enthusiasm to learn this material and learn how cravings work in the body, they've been able to quite quickly adapt. Anyway, we will leave that one for today. If you want to post your key takeaways from this session in the group, that would be great. I was actually genuinely quite excited about this one. But again, for those who missed it, it will also be posted in the Facebook group. So I'll let you all go and see you next week and for your check-ins. And don't forget to post your wins and key takeaways for this in the group.